Quite often people ask me, what kind of aquarium is best? Let's take a few minutes and talk about what tank is right for you. Hello YouTube, this is pecktec, and I'm sorry I'm on my own today. Clone Alpha is off running around with roaming clone, and Clone Beta is here, but he just won't leave the cat alone for some reason. He's become very attached. It's weird.
Kitty. Hey, kitty.
But anyway, the subject of today's show is what aquarium is right for you. Now, when you start to think about what aquarium is right for you, what I think of is, what are my goals? What space does it fill in my home, as a decorative concept? You really should think of it as that way. I mean, my obsession is taking it beyond that. I mean, basically my whole living room is aquariums, and I've got an aquarium in every room of the house almost. But not everybody wants to do that. I mean, it all did start with one aquarium. Now, by and large, what I recommend for your first aquarium is something in the 20 to 30 gallon range. I've got a number of tanks that way. I've got a 30 gallon and I've got the 27 gallon cube. Now, either one of those would be a decent size to start an aquarium. And the reason I say that is it's not super huge, like it doesn't take up a tremendous amount of space, but it is an appropriate amount of space to keep more than just a fish or two. I mean, you could keep a decent school of fish in a 30 gallon tank if they're not too large. That's the other thing to consider. If there's a specific fish, if you're in it for the fish exclusively, a lot of cichlid guys are like this. If there's a particular type of cichlid that you want, you need to figure out what size that fish gets and find out what the appropriate tank is and then work backwards from that. It's really nice to hear that a lot of people do it this way. So they'll decide that they want, like I collect small cichlids because I have small aquariums. So occasionally I'll have like a German blue ram. They get very small and you can keep them in maybe 5 to 10 gallons and that'd be okay. But some of these guys, like I see Oscars for sale all the time. Now Oscars are tremendously cool fish, but they're very large. They're large waist creators, so keeping them in aquariums like I keep would just be a disaster. I mean, they rip up plants, they take all the rocks and they'll pile them up on one side or another side, and they produce a lot of waste, so you got to plan accordingly. I think an Oscar could be by itself in a 55 gallon for a lot of its life, and then maybe up to a 75 or 90 gallon once they get really immense. I see these guys in small tanks all the time and it just kind of makes me sad. Kerrigan and I always have an iPhone ready when we go shopping, so we've done a little bit of shopping, and I'll talk a little bit more about some stuff that I maybe would avoid. Maybe some good stuff too, but mostly avoid.
When you look in the retail stores, most of these containers are just much too small, even for a betta, and maybe they'll hold your office supplies or whatever, or they do some kind of cutesy little thing, but they're really way too small for a fish, and I definitely don't recommend these little tiny containers. Now, I know they come in all kinds of neat shapes and sizes, but it's just really a bad idea. Even the really cutesy ones that are a little bit over a gallon, just stay away from this stuff. These little cheap kits in the end are not going to make for a happy fish. There are a lot of kind of innovative, sophisticated nano tank options that are meant to be low maintenance and are pretty interesting. But mostly what you're going to see are very cheap acrylic aquariums that come in these small kits. There are also bowls and other things too, and some with real sophisticated or interesting looking filters. Probably the worst of the kits that I've found is this one that we saw at Walgreens, which is basically a stuffed animal with a aquarium inside of it.
How do you feed the fish? You put it... Oh. Mouth opens here.
That's the food in the unicorn's throat. Nice.
The inevitable end for an aquarium like this is what you see here sitting at the thrift store, much cheaper, unused, and, that's what you'd expect for this sort of thing. Really, the best deal at the thrift store that day was this Beta Bulk set. What I recommend is a 20 to 30 gallon tank, even if it's a plain square. Just get something like that, and you'll be happier.
Just Edith and Archie. They're fire eels.
I know.
I get this real funny comment, or I think it's funny, all the time on a lot of videos that I make. The retail price is $70, $80. I could get a 200-gallon aquarium off Craigslist for that. Well, great, but there's only going to be maybe, what, one or a couple of those available, you know, from time to time. So if a person chose to spend, you know, full price on a new aquarium, then, you know, you made that choice. I personally have bought lots of aquariums off Craigslist, and especially when I first got started and I just wanted to have tank after tank after tank, I bought probably 4 or 5 aquariums off Craigslist, and so far have been very lucky. I did find a lot of them were a little bit scratched and not in pristine condition, but later on, when I decided that I really knew what I wanted, and I wanted to fill that particular spot in my home, you know, I picked a particular aquarium. I personally, one of my favorite, like, not tiny but not huge aquariums is this Fluval Flora. I just love the shape of it. It's like the perfect size, really, to keep it work. It's not so small like a 5-gallon, but, you know, a little bit smaller than a 10-gallon, and yeah, at 8 gallons, it's kind of a nice compromise. It's still too small for most beginners, and I don't recommend these little small specs and stuff for beginners. If that's your first tank, I would really avoid anything smaller than, you know, a 10-gallon tank. Start with the very simplest 10-gallon tank you can think of, and then move up from there. I would really start with a 30 or 20-gallon, actually, would be my favorite. But if you get it off Craigslist, my first 30-gallon was off Craigslist, and I loved it. So there you go. Some manufacturers have low iron glass, which is tremendously clear, so much clearer than regular glass. So when you get down into the picking this aquarium or that aquarium, it can get pretty complicated. Most of the time, a new aquarium really shouldn't cost you a tremendous amount of money, but you do want to consider things like the fish, of course. If you want to add plants, then you have to start thinking about the lighting that you're going to use, and the substrate too. Of course, the substrate comes into play with different types of species as well, but it especially comes into play if plants have to live off what you put in there. So that's something else to consider. As far as what I would like, what I personally like, I like small things. I don't think a beta tank should ever be under a gallon though, and I really think even the Fluval spec, the original Fluval spec, is really pushing it. It's just it's almost too small, but it seems to work out great if you put a lot of plants in it and stuff. My betas are real healthy and they seem okay with it, so I'm okay with it. I seriously would recommend any of the aquariums that I've unboxed and used, from the Flora to, you know, especially the bigger specs. I think that those are great tanks, but don't put a ton of stuff in them. I mean, these small tanks, like under 5 gallons, really only suitable for maybe a beta or beta. You know, I don't think I would. There's not too many things I would put in there. My 5-gallon, I'm keeping a BB puffer just by itself. So something like that, you know, if they're great for like a tiny species tank, but you better put a small fish in there because there's really not enough room to build up a colony. And for most of the way I see people populate their fish tanks, the people, especially new people, could just get a bigger tank. That's all I can say. Just get a bigger tank if you want to have that kind of enjoyment. These small tanks aren't for you. And folks, that's where I'm going to end today's show. I've had a lot of stuff going on, so I probably will take a couple of weeks off. I might be back on August 17th to do another live show like I did last year, but I'm not certain of that. So if you keep up with me on Twitter, I'm pecktec 101 or at pecktec 101 on Twitter. And of course, pecktec on YouTube, on Facebook. So if you look in either of those places, I'll fill you in on the next live show. I do want to do another one this year. I don't know if I've even done one this year, but I'm going to do one at least on my birthday. Maybe make a new commercial, something like that. But I probably won't be around next Sunday. Apparently Clone Alpha's got a video that he's going to put out.
So he's doing letters to July.
When was it?
This week, I think. Yeah, he's doing.
He's doing a letters to. Yeah, he's doing a letters to July video, and it's real mysterious. I don't know anything about it, so that'll probably be out next week. So for that, and I'll see you soon. the subject of today's but wanted to is what are you looking for? I mean, are you want? Okay, so well, I hope this helped out just a little bit.
So, salt water, but wait, aquarium water for regular aquariums.
As we like to call it, water. It's $12. I guess it's like if you're in your car, like if you're driving around and you gotta do a water change, but there's no water around.
Yeah,
You
on,
can come
on your
smart.
fish-run engine.
Yeah.
That,
Don't blink. I love you, cat. I love you, kitty kitty.